Okay, I know it's been almost a year, Jesus. But I've been unmotivated as usual. I have an actual job now. Kingdom Hearts 3 came out. I've had to help around the house so it doesn't look as much of a rundown 80-year-old bungalow. And this random hiatus will most likely happen again given my track record even when I move out, so don't call it a comeback. But hey, I finally got around to making a commentary that has nothing to do with Pokemon. Devil May Cry 5 came out recently to critical acclaim and strong sales, and this motivated me to finally give the rest of the series a try. While I can't say I was the biggest fan of Devil May Cry 1, and Devil May Cry 2's biggest failing is being boringly mediocre, Devil May Cry 3 and 4 are two of the best games I've played in recent memory. 4 in particular engrossed me from the moment I started playing, and its problems barely registered because I loved the combat system so damn much, and that's before I learned of the insane depths of the mechanics. This passion for a game I love led me to looking for some videos about it, and I found two CinemaSins style videos. A much more recent one by GCN, which was a rather solid critique of the game that equally acknowledges where the game succeeds, and this year-old one from Dartigan, whose video was much more flawed and is the subject of today's commentary. Now, it is over a year old, and Dartigan may have changed his stance on the game, but while I am largely criticizing his reasonings, I do have issues with his use of the Sins format, which is his channel's primary draw, so it can still apply for his future endeavors. Those critiques may be fewer in number, but they are still there. And I do expect Dartigan to view this because this is the first commentary I've made ever since I put into effect the idea to share the commentaries with the creators of the original video. Without further ado, let's get on with the show.
Devil May Cry 4 came from the era when Japanese devs were desperate to appeal to new audiences because Japanese players were obsessed with mobile games. In the attempt to make their games more appealing to Westerners, many franchises were gutted, rebooted, or saw popular main characters switch for new ones. This approach pretty much ended with failure every time, as characters like Dante were already appealing to people in the West. So of course they dropped him as a lead in favor of Nero, who looks just like Dante, fights just like Dante, steals clothes from Dante's wardrobe, and has a name tied to the darker history of Christianity just like Dante.
Right away, we have the most recurring theme of the video, Nero bashing. Now, I'm not saying one can't hate Nero. He did come across similar to how Raiden originally did in Metal Gear Solid 2, and me personally, I'm more middle of the road on him, as he isn't as interesting as Dante, Virgil, Lady, or even Trish, but I don't find him as insufferable as Dartigan makes him out to be, and I loved his combat mechanics, which to be fair isn't saying much because I loved every character's gameplay. The issue is that this is an idea he continually, insistently repeats throughout the entire video, and it gets a bit grating by the end. I will agree that Nero is easy to mistake for Dante from a casual perspective.
He still missed your entire performance. Why do you look so happy? That's bad boyfriend material.
At least he made the effort to show up at all, and it seemed he would have made it at least halfway through if it weren't for the scarecrows he had to deal with. He wasn't late for lack of trying. It's also made clear throughout the rest of the scene that Kyrie is the only reason he's there and doesn't give a fuck about the Order's religion, something Kyrie is most likely very aware of.
I'm out of here.
But it's not over yet.
All this preaching's putting me to sleep.
I'll send the game for casting Liam O'Brien to play Sanctus. You pretty much give away the fact that a character is the main villain when I hear his voice behind him.
Liam O'Brien has voiced a good selection of heroic characters, even before he voiced Sanctus. You aren't wrong about Sanctus being the villain, but sometimes a voice actor's IMDb page doesn't give away a character's alignment.
Kyrie is Nero's girlfriend. Nero hides his demon arm inside that arm sling, yet his girlfriend, nor anyone else, has ever asked why he has a perpetually broken arm.
Though this is never mentioned in-game, the Deadly Fortune graphic novel, which the game's writer wrote and considers canon despite the deviations it takes and it being written after he left Capcom, clarifies that Nero and Kyrie are childhood friends and haven't gotten into a romantic relationship by the time DMC4 starts. It also clarifies that Nero didn't have his devil arm, until an incident not too long before the start of the game which injured his shoulder, hence the cast. Now, I'm normally not one to endorse looking up outside sources for a full understanding of something that should be standalone, especially one whose canonicity is in question, and that should be the sin here, but it doesn't hurt to look up information about the game you're sinning. It might answer your questions, which is precisely why, when critiquing something, other media does matter.
You know, my Heart of Ice may beat slower than most, but it still only took one of them to piece this intricately laid plot together.
One of your heart? I'm assuming this was a leftover from an earlier draft where you meant to say it only took one of your brain cells to figure that out.
A double-barreled revolver has to be the dumbest weapon ever in the history of outlandish weapons. You can only fire it 3 times before needing to reload.
You are aware you're talking about a Devil May Cry game, right? A series predominantly defined by rule of cool where style overtakes practicality? You even admit in your last sin that you played this game in preparation for Devil May Cry 5, implying that you're a fan that got to this game late, or at least that game got your attention at E3 last year.
This will be the only time in the game Nero has to reload despite the inefficient design of his gun. In fact, this may be the only time in the series' history that a character has been shown reloading a weapon.
Actually, Lady was shown reloading in DMC3.
These monoliths are Hellgates, and they are scattered all around the city, yet Nero doesn't destroy them even after seeing demons popping out of them.
This is a Sin shared with the GCN video that I find a bit odd. Namely, the sin should be that Nero doesn't even make an attempt to destroy the Hellgates. And if Nero couldn't destroy the Hellgates, he'd probably still be sinned for being perceived as pathetic when compared to Dante's near-effortless destruction of them. Or at least you would've. This is the sort of thing that sin videos tend to fall into. Sinned if you do, sinned if you don't. And now for another recurring issue.
It's almost like Capcom decided that after turning down publishing Bayonetta, they would stick a character that apes her style in the new DMC game before Bayonetta could launch.
The strange insinuation that, somehow, Capcom had advanced knowledge of Bayonetta's existence and preemptively ripped it off in Devil May Cry 4, mainly with Gloria. It may be meant as a joke in light of the similarities, but some later sins imply he actually believes this. The issue with that is, while Bayonetta starting development in January 2007 does line up with DMC4's early 2008 release, I found no indication that Capcom ever had any advanced knowledge of Bayonetta, let alone rejected publishing it. In fact, Kamiya has noted that he played Devil May Cry 4 for research on Bayonetta's development. While I found no explicit confirmation, it's completely possible that the Gloria character served as a basis for Bayonetta's personality and combat style, rather than a paradoxical other way around. If anything, though, it's a hilarious in hindsight coincidence.
Well, that's an angle that doesn't leave much to the imagination.
You did say earlier that 2008 video game boob jiggle physics turned an entire generation into ass men, so wouldn't this be appealing to them? Then again, the last game had Dante fight his first battle completely shirtless, so I say the fan service is fairly equal.
So this is where Nintendo got the idea for Splatoon.
This is another thing both Sin videos comment that I find questionable. Splatoon is a game where kid squids try to cover as much of an area as possible with ink. Bale, and Dagon for that matter, is a demon partially inspired by toads and anglerfish with two human female-like feelers. I suppose they do look a bit like octolings, but the correlation is still fairly vague to me.
No explanation will be given for why Virgil's katana is here, unless that was explained in the DLC, and I don't really care if it was.
A few things. A, that is technically the correct spelling, but not for the Virgil you're referring to. This mistake pops up a couple more times, with Triss instead of Trish,
That magical curtain Triss pulled out of the ground.
Krato instead of Krato, and even Sanctum instead of Sanctus, the latter being particularly odd since Sanctus is correctly referred to multiple times earlier. There's even a misspelling of therefore and research. Spelling mistakes can crop up here and there, but one should take care to try and mitigate that as much as possible. B. DLC? You mean Virgil's campaign in the special edition? Which is not DLC for the vanilla release of Devil May Cry 4, which had no DLC at all? Even the special edition only had time-saver stuff and pre-order costumes for Lady and Trish. And C, no. Virgil's story only features 2 scenes that take place even before DMC3, and even then it's basically fluff to justify his inclusion. There is no real answer as to how the hell Yamato escaped the demon world, with the closest being something from the DMC5 Visions of V manga, so the actual point of the sin is still correct.
Once again, Nero doesn't destroy the Hellgate that the demons are pouring out of.
We went through this! Are you stupid or what?
Who the hell is Dante?
You seriously don't know who the son of Sparta is? The guy the city worships? That's like living in the Vatican and not knowing who Jesus is.
It's been made perfectly clear that Nero gives no fucks about the Order of the Sword's religion and likely doesn't pay attention to Sparta's lineage. Which would be quite ironic, but still.
You possess the power of a demon.
What of it? So do you. You transform into one to fight Nero.
It's perceived as angelic power.
I have been chosen to take the next step in evolution, to become something far more than just a human. I am an angel.
I imagine Kratos ain't entirely privy to the specifics of Agnes's research.
Man, I wish Nero could parry like that when I'm in control of him. In-game, all he can do is dodge.
Actually, parrying is a simple matter of attacking as the enemy's about to hit you. Any of DMC4's playable cast can do it. I learned of this while fighting the Mephisto enemies in Virgil's campaign.
A thing of utter and pure beauty.
Go blow yourself.
This is why I hate Nero. Lines as stupid require Dante's sass for a proper response. Nero just gets angry.
Sanctus has Kyrie held hostage and threatened to be permanently merged with the Savior. Nero clearly has no reason to get pissy with Sanctus at the moment, right? Besides, like it or hate it, Nero's brashness separates him from Dante's cockiness and Virgil's collectedness.
I had originally intended to intervene into our savior, but circumstance presenting, I'd rather choose the option at hand.
You mean you could have gone through with this plan to create a god statue anytime you wanted, but held out in hopes of absorbing Dante, and then in the end went with Nero and his girlfriend and it works just as well?
Not at any time. They also needed Yamato repaired to open the Hellgates and Sparta the Sword to awaken the Savior, things they did not have until the events of the game. Even considering the need for Sparta's blood, Sanctus explicitly states he had eyes on Dante, something Nero was at first going to give to them until he started learning more of the truth. Kyrie was only used for Nero's motivation and was by no means a requirement. At least she's lucky she wasn't fridged.
And they didn't bother animating Kratos' mouth for that line.
Angelo Kratos' mouth was not animated for the rest of the game. and one could argue it's more of a visual touch in this form rather than a functioning mouth.
The Order's plan was to unleash demons from the Hellgates they created, then use a savior to destroy them in hopes of spreading this religion further to control the world. But why start in the city of Fortuna, a city that already follows the religion? You are literally preaching to the choir.
Word can spread, especially if the DMC world is reflective of our own heavily social media driven society.
But the real problem is the Order. Lately they've been running amok, catching demons, and have even butted in on some of my jobs.
Maybe they're starting a zoo.
Not just demons. They've also been targeting devil arms, like the ones you have.
Had you three not gotten involved, none of this would have mattered. The Order couldn't complete the Savior without the Sword of Sparta, and they couldn't open the Hellgate without Yamato. You gave them Sparta to get inside, and while they had Yamato, it was broken until Nero came along and fixed it, and that only happened because he was chasing after you. And from the sound of Lady's report, the Order wasn't really doing anything wrong, just looking for devil arms. Apparently that was enough to convince Dante to head there and assassinate Sanctum. So all of this is your fault.
My guess is that their interference with ladies' jobs were a deliberate way to lure out Dante and get what they needed, especially considering Sanctus wanted Dante specifically to awaken the Savior. Besides, work is work for Dante, and Trish does get called out on giving the Order Sparta in the post-credits scene.
You summon and kill. Summon and kill. I fail to see the logic here. Said it. The price to pay for power?
It was really nice of Agnes to not only play along with Dante here, but to be the one who started the Shakespeare bit and set up the lighting for it.
Logistically, that's a fair point, but this scene is so hugely entertaining that it more than deserves a pass.
It takes a journey to hell for them to accept and praise their god.
Agnes has had a stuttering problem the entire game. What happened to that now that he's doing a performance?
D-Gladiator in the comments points out that people with stuttering problems tend to overcome it when reciting something already written. Something I found to be true from MayoClinic.org, specifically noting the same circumstances that Agnes is currently in. What do you know?
This makes the third time I've had to fight all these bosses. Why do people consider DMC to be the worst game in the series? I think this game is by far the laziest.
First, either because they never played Devil May Cry 2, or the story and characters were just that irritating and the gameplay not as engaging as past games. It's truly an opinion thing. Secondly, Devil May Cry games have always made you fight the same bosses again. Especially Devil May Cry 1 where Nightmare, Griffin, Phantom, and Nilo Angelo were all fought 3 times each, albeit in different ways. Same goes for the Virgil fights in DMC3, which also featured a boss rush. Not every fight in the boss rush was mandatory, but you still had to fight those bosses again with no significant change like in 4. The only reason you could realistically call DMC4 lazy is the fact that Dante's part is 95% repeated from Nero's part. Mainly because the game was rushed and also under budget constraints. Here's proof.
後々ユーザーの方からは不満を言われたところであるんですけども、マップを行って帰ってくるっていうところも実は予算的には3とそんな変わらない予算で、同じ作り方だと到底予算と期日に間に合わないということで、シナリオとうまく噛み合わせればこれぐらいの予算で素晴らしいゲームになるんじゃないかというところでチャレンジした。
This has the added benefit of disproving your claim of DMC4 being lazy. They did their best given the constraints. The rest I don't have anything to say about, so I'll end it here. While this isn't the worst Sins video I've seen, some of the issues brought up were either confusing, very minor, inconsistent, repetitively annoying, outright wrong, or any combination of the aforementioned problems. Pay more attention, do some research, and try not to let any hate boners you have overtake any of your future videos. I do apologize if I'm criticizing an outdated view of yours, but I just wanted to throw this out there regardless. I'm Transformers Fanco328, and fun fact, Bale and Dagon's feelers were made using Kyrie's nude model. Have fun with that image!